It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And we are back with the Real Estate Breakfast. Yes, bringing you the latest update on the Australian housing property market, and now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts from Geelong to Cairns, plus all of those regional markets right around the country. And remember, we're not talking about property listings. No, we're just here to give you the property insights that you want and delivered fresh to you every morning. Well, I hope you enjoyed the weekend, especially if you were out having a look at property. Back all together on a Monday morning, April the 27th. If you're celebrating a birthday, you're in pretty good company. Sheena Easton. Are you old enough to remember her? I am. She's turning 67. Ace Frehley, one of my heroes from KISS, he is turning 75. Wow. And Nick Cave is celebrating a birthday. He's turning 69. If you've ever been on an Airbus A380, interesting day today, April the 27th, back in 2005, was the maiden flight of an Airbus A380. I remember the first time I was thinking, this plane is not going to take off. You know, it just doesn't really have that thrust factor. But it does, but it's very weird the way that A380s take off. Now, Australia has billions of dollars tied up in apartments, strata complexes, mixed-use buildings and investment property, but many buildings still operate with poor handovers, missing documents, unclear warranties, compliance risk, reactive maintenance, and then there's the management that changes, losing data, and then you've got disputes over defects. So we're going to talk all about that as we take you to Canberra this morning and catch up with Callie Hill. She is the CEO of Arcsite. And welcome to you, Callie. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast. Great to have you on. You have a company that you're involved with, the Australian Building Intelligence Property Operations Platform, focused on solving one of the biggest problems in real estate and strata, fragmented building information. So tell us a little bit about that first off.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Craig. Yes, we have a business called Arcsite, which lives off the back of our long-standing company in Canberra, Residential Reports. We do 3,500 building compliance, pest and energy rating inspections in Canberra and surrounding regions, which has given us over the last couple of decades wonderful insight into what building information and data can do to maintain property long-term and save properties billions of dollars over time. So off the back of this, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've developed a business called Arcsite, which focuses on centralising large apartment building information into a single source of truth and giving that information and access to that information right back to the owners of the building to help preserve the building, maintain it, plan ahead, and just empower the right people with information to increase the value of their building.
Yeah, because when it comes to apartments, as I said, strata buildings and developments, who really owns the building data today, and why has that become such a major issue for owners and investors?
In terms of ownership, I think everyone would argue that the building data does belong to the owners. However, how it is maintained, accessed, stored, that's where lines get grey and where the information becomes less valuable and less useful. The system in Australia, I would liken strata to where finance sat back in the 90s, pre or at the advent of MyOB and Xero. You know, businesses were being run off the back of proprietary systems that sat with the particular accountant or finance team of the time. And if that business moved to a different group, then everything would change. And if you take that same analogy to a building where the building management group traditionally in strata in Australia dictates the software and the platforms that might be used on that building, or the systems and the processes to be able to run it, store the information, receive the maintenance requests, confirm that compliance has been undertaken or that the boxes are being ticked, because that information has traditionally sat with the management teams, and because management teams inevitably change, that data seems to find itself in USBs, Google Drives, where an entirely new building performance needs to be kind of spun up the next time that information, someone is able to access that information to begin a new era of looking after the building. Our concept is to really look and learn from finance and focus back on the people that are delivering the service. We are not replacing the humans. That's the most important point to make, is that the client relationships are critical to good building maintenance and management, and good relationships within big communities that strata managers are having to navigate. However, we need to take the white noise out of the way that information is received and the performance within the building. How someone walks into an elevator and reports that the elevator is stuck or that the motorised garage door is broken, how does that information go back to the right people? And then when we need that information, maybe 2 or 3 years down the track, how do we get it instantly?
Yes, you say relationships. That is absolutely a key part of the jigsaw puzzle. Now, when a lot of people hear the word data, some will think tech buzzword, but in practical terms, how can centralised building information actually lift the value of a property or a development?
Look, I think that we're becoming more sophisticated as buyers or as people looking at where we're going to be living and how we're going to be spending our money on our properties. But centralised information 1,000% reduces the overall cost of a building. Being able to look back at trends, understanding defects, understanding most particularly maintenance trends is so critical to reducing costs. And by being able to demonstrate good behaviours within a building, how quickly defects or maintenance requests are addressed and closed off, that information, being able to report that at a high level is so critical to how we're then able to approach insurance. If we can prove that we're reducing our risks on buildings by the way that information is being managed and who's accessing it, we can then go to insurance companies and demonstrate that we're lowering our risk profiles, and buildings need to be rewarded for that.
Yeah, no, good point. And traditionally, developers finish construction and hand over with the keys to the owners. How are smarter developers then now rethinking the handover as a long-term value proposition, perhaps rather than just the final step of construction?
Oh, I think this is completely transforming, and we are seeing some phenomenal developers and builders right here in Canberra that we're working with who are recognising that from a reputational perspective, they are building beautiful properties and they want them looked after. So they don't just want to throw the keys at the manager and walk away. This is their brand. This is the property that they've built from the ground up. And so they're looking at programs like ours and gifting them to the property owners as part of handover. So we are taking all of their thousands of documents, their plans, their warranties, their maintenance schedules, their future periodic inspections. We are putting those all into a system that's easy to access and navigate, that the executive committee of the building, so the representatives of the owners corporation, have just as much access to that information as the building managers do, which means that everyone's on the same page and it's all very transparent. The builder can access the defect register in real time. We have a system where we fit QR codes to the building, and individual unit owners can push their defects back so that builders have really rich information on trends, which is very important for their next build and being able to assess their current contractors. So builders are seeing this as a long-term investment and a gift to the owners corporation to say, we're going to elevate the way that we are maintaining this building moving forward, which is inevitably going to save you money.
We are talking to Kelly this morning, and a very interesting conversation. More to follow after this.
It's your weekday real estate breakfast with news, interviews and predictions every morning on the Real Estate Podcast. Stay ahead of the competition with the latest news, insights and data analysis on the Property Podcast that keeps you informed.
It is a Real Estate Monday. Yes, the grind back into a brand new week. Kelly is with us. And Kelly, I want to talk about, are buyers and owners becoming more aware that poorly managed buildings can destroy value while well-run buildings can outperform? That's the first half of the question I want to throw at you this morning. And the other part to that is, could centralised building intelligence become as important as location when buying apartments in the future? What do you think?
Absolutely. I see this. I think we're at the dawn of a really exciting era for the way that buildings are assessed and the purchase process. And having had a lot of experience with this over the last 20 years in conveyancing in Canberra and understanding at a grassroots level what's important to people buying property, whether that's for them to live in or invest in, we are absolutely at a point where people need to understand that one of the first questions they need to be asking when they're looking at an apartment, yes, of course, people are now starting to say, okay, who built it? What's their reputation? But most critically is how their information is being managed, how the building performs, how the occupants behave within the building in order to push maintenance requests, book amenities, register their pets and animals. All of that information should not be lost every time there's a change in management group. It shouldn't sit in emails or inboxes. It needs to sit central to the building so that at the press of a button, we can do live reports that are very important during the conveyancing process. So I see that conveyancing across Australia, there's going to be a demand for live reporting on this information. We want to know up to the minute where your contractors are at, how often have they been renewed, what are we spending on them, what are your periodic inspections looking like, is all your compliance up to date? And people will start to assess the value of a building based on that information, just as much as they might assess it on the size of the balcony or the quality of the appliances in the kitchen.
You're talking about the live reporting. Do you see in the future perhaps every building eventually having a digital twin or a live intelligence dashboard?
We'd love to see that because we offer it now. But yes, absolutely. I do believe that that's the future of strata. The right people will have their hands on a dashboard, including the management and representatives of that owners corporation, that can keep everyone honest and transparent. And this kind of system only elevates the good people that are working in the industry. So it's not designed to replace. These people need jobs and they're excellent at their work on the whole. However, I think we're getting caught up in these proprietary systems where when handovers occur, and that's just inevitable, between groups, management groups change, even just the managers within management groups change for a variety of reasons. And that should not affect the performance of the building. It's just going back to finance. If you change accountants, you're not changing your entire payroll structure. It's just a log out and log in situation, and everything about the way the building performs. An occupant can still walk into the lift, click on a QR code, push their maintenance request. We're not having to spend time and money re-educating the people in the building, the contractors, clicking a QR code to check in and immediately pushing their photos, their notes, 2-minute notes straight through to that building asset for the rest of time, where the contractor hasn't had to spend any additional money on their tech stack or training. We're at that point where we can offer this to the community. And it's, I think, something that people are really taking seriously.
Good stuff, Kelly. It is such a big area that you are into, and people do have to pay attention. Thanks for joining us from Canberra this morning on the Real Estate Breakfast, and enjoy your Monday and the week ahead.
Thanks for having me, Craig. It's been a pleasure.
Remember to follow us on any of the podcast platforms so you never miss a real estate podcast. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify and Amazon. Know your property with us.
Lots of high-rise developments occur. That in itself can help change a price point.
As a buyer, it's very important that you do your research up front and understand how long the buyer's agent has been a buyer's agent in that particular area.
7 children living in tents at night.
Yes, it is completely outrageous. Surely there is room in the budget to help people like this.
Most of these investors are aware of the challenges, but they have the long view and they're looking at where Melbourne is on the property clock. Brisbane's moved, Sydney we can't afford, Perth's moved. Property clock is sitting at the right position for Melbourne.
And so the idea that first home buyers get older is absolutely logical. If house prices keep going up, it takes longer to save money to begin with to actually afford that home, that down payment. We are now shifting more and more into a knowledge economy in Australia.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.